So I sat down in this very same chair a few months ago to record this same video where I was going to share my everyday walk around camera. For the first few months of this year, I was using this guy. This is the Sony RX1R2. I kitted this thing out with a hand grip and even imported Sony's original thumb grip from Japan, something that I hadn't seen many people using with this camera. I know there's a lot of hype lately, and while it's a fine camera for its time, I'm pretty spoiled by the performance of Sony's more recent cameras. Every time I would go out and shoot with it, I found myself wishing I had just brought my Sony a7R5 instead, even though it would have been a bigger, bulkier camera. Right around the time I was using the RX1R2 as my everyday camera, I got a new camera in the mail that really surprised me. In case you didn't know, on top of the videos that I make here on my YouTube channel, I also produce videos for Sony's Alpha Universe YouTube channel. And at times I get products early to make those videos. At that time, I got a box with this little guy inside. This is the Sony a6700, and in all honesty, my first impression wasn't one of excitement. I'm mainly a full frame camera guy, so having an APS-C sensor inside kind of automatically ruled it out as a camera that I would personally want to use. But all of that changed as I was out shooting with it for that video for Alpha Universe. I found myself really loving the ergonomics of the camera. Even though it was small, they made the grip bigger, which made it a lot easier to hold than the RX1R Mark II. This camera is like that person that you friend zoned, but then after a while you realize that they're actually kind of cute. You know what I mean? I ended up buying one with the intention of using it as my everyday camera, even though I only use a few different APS-C lenses. This camera is definitely sweet, especially when you consider the price point and all of the features that they added to this. It has a lot of the newer features like the AI processor from the a7R5 that gives you amazing autofocus. It's got great video features and all of that for $1,400. That might be a lot for some people, but for all of those features, and given that the Sony lens ecosystem is pretty awesome, it could be a great option for some people, including me. With all that said, this is not the camera that stayed as my everyday camera. I still own it and it's great, and I'll definitely be shooting some content with it here on the channel. But I'm so used to the images that are coming off of that a7R5. Man, it's hard for me to use anything else. You know, thankfully, a few months later, Sony released this guy. This is the A7CR. It's basically like my main camera, it's just a little bit smaller. I took it with me to Puerto Rico to take some photos of my mom's hometown, a place that she hadn't visited in nearly 60 years. I've also used it to take on my family trips and, you know, just documenting life. For me, I'm not the one that's always taking photos when I'm not doing it professionally, and that's something that I want to change this year. But when I want to take a photo, I would prefer for it to be high quality. The A7CR checks all of the boxes for me. The resolution is great, the autofocus is amazing, and the ergonomics just make it a joy to use. I even added a thumb grip to it, and for me, it just feels perfect in my hand, and it actually makes me want to take it out and shoot. For lenses, I have a lot of professional grade lenses at my studio, but I don't really want to bring them with me when I'm not getting paid to work. I'm always afraid that it'll get lost or it'll get stolen or I'll drop it or whatever. So I went out and I searched for a complimentary walk-around lens that lowers the cost compared to something like my 24-70 G Master lens. I ended up getting what I call Sony's baby primes, which consists of a 24 f2.8 G and a 40mm f2.5 G. At the time they were released, I didn't really appreciate what these lenses could do, mainly because I was using my a7R5, both as my everyday and my professional camera. After taking a bunch of photos with these two lenses, my opinion completely changed. They basically give you G Master performance in a small, lightweight lens and at a lower price point than the professional G Master stuff that I'm using for my pro work. If I wanted to make the overall package of the camera even smaller, I pop on my Sony, it's a 20mm f2.8 lens. It's an APS-C lens, so it brings the resolution down to 26 megapixels being used on this full frame camera. But the overall form factor is so much smaller and lighter, and the image quality is still really good. To give it that more vintage kind of look, I also added a lens hood that's made by Hogue or Hoage. Not exactly sure how to pronounce that. It's not made for this lens, and it's actually made for some of those baby primes that I talked about earlier, but it still fits, and in my opinion, it looks great with this setup. I opted to black out the logos and the text on the camera just to make it look a little bit sleeker and stealthier. And I also added this stick-on shutter button just to make things a little bit more tactile. At times, I'll just add on this Arca Swiss grip that's made by JJC so that I always have the option to mount this on a tripod when I'm taking family pictures that I also want to be in. In my opinion, the A7CR is the perfect complement to any of Sony's top full-frame cameras, and it's an excellent option as an everyday walk-around camera. Yeah, it's bigger than the RX1R2, but in pretty much every other way, it's superior. The resolution is higher, the autofocus is way more advanced, the battery life is way better, and of course, you have way better video recording capabilities. The A7CR has become my personal everyday camera, and at this point, I don't see that changing anytime soon. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon, subscribe to get notified, and I'll see you here next time.